Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am overjoyed today because I have one of my favorite humans in the podcast. His name is James Annear. You've seen him as we film Ask the Unfaithful all the time, but you also know his better half, his beautiful, talented, brilliant, wonderful woman, Sharon Renierson. So, James, thank you for coming in, bro. How are you?
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, Sam.
You know, I'm really excited about you, but I'm also excited about the topic because today is a question that I think so many people in recovery or so many people who are trying to heal from infidelity, whether it's their partners or their own, eventually come to the point where they have to ask themselves, is an intensive right for me? Or is an intensive right for our relationship? But before we talk about that, I think it would be great for you and for you to talk about why you and Sharon started doing intensives. You guys are successful therapists. You coach, you work with people all over the world. But what made you and Sharon start to transition to intensives?
So we started this work, 13 years ago. And we were doing it the traditional way, once a week. Groups of people could join those, and couples work, of course, periodically. So what we found, though, it was really frustrating because we would do some work, really good work with people, and then they had to try to hold on to that for a week, which is really hard to do. And so they didn't get that sort of foundational work. It took a long time for it to take hold. So we ended up going, okay, well, how can we change this? How can we make this better? How can we make it more effective? Because what we really wanted for people was to get to a place like we were, and we didn't have the benefit of an intensive.
Right.
I didn't have the benefit of going to treatment. It was all sort of, how do we do this? Figuring it out as we go. And we both got training, and all of that really helped. And yet there was no platform. Nobody out there was doing intensives, except for the 30-day places, right? So we decided, hey, nobody's doing it. Let's try this. And we really were either the first or one of the first who started doing these intensives for individuals and couples. And so what we found was that they then became really great for kickstarting, for getting people going. And the research actually shows that to be true. Not research on what we do necessarily, but in general, the more intense the treatment is up front, the better things go, and the much higher rate of recovery overall. So, and that's across sort of the range of different mental health things or emotional health things that people see therapists for. Ours happens to be very, very specialized.
And I send people to you and Sharon all the time, either for individual or for couples, because it's specialized. It's, as we would say, tailor-made to the needs of the client. There's some people, and it's pretty widespread. Some people are like, hey, I did an intensive. No, didn't love it. And then there's people that have done intensives and they've been like, changed my life. And then there's people, I've done intensives as a couple, I've done intensives by myself. I love them when they are facilitated by people who have been through infidelity and or addiction. So why is your intensive so specialized? Not everybody knows, your full story, but you guys have been through it. So I think the information that you're helping people with are tangible, palatable things that they are going to go through, right?
Oh, without a doubt, because we designed a lot of what we do from what we went through.
Yeah.
And knowing where we didn't get help from professionals that we needed and had to figure out or find other professionals who maybe knew that little piece. Right. And I mean, literally, we had like 3 or 4 different therapists at any given time, right? So that we get all these pieces. And we had to figure out a lot of it ourselves. And certainly I was lucky enough to be in 12-step work, and because of that, I had a wonderful sponsor who actually is a neurologist and a CSAT, and was also at that time, which it was very unusual, very betrayed partner oriented.
Right.
So that kind of experience and Sharon's experience and the things that she did in her recovery absolutely really was an integral part of the design that we've come up with. And the thing about that is it's not a formula.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the beautiful things is we have so many different sort of therapeutic modalities at our disposal. So we do things educational, brain stuff, neurology, right? We do a lot of experiential work. We have all these things at our disposal. If we tried to do them all in one intensive, it would be like a month long. So we have all those for, that kind of menu, if you will, is because then when we talk to people, which we do a free consultation prior to even, are we going to be a good fit for them? Are they going to be a good fit for how we do things? And so on. What we'll do is we'll ask them, what are your specific goals? And what we're able to do then is meet them where they are, which, by the way, changes through the course of an intensive sometimes. So we have to be able to shift on the fly, which is great because we can do it because we have so much at our disposal to help people. And we, pay a lot of attention to what's going on with them. Do they need extra regulating? Do we need to stop this particular modality that we're using? Do we need to stop educating and get them down into their heart from their head? Is there, what do we need right now? We need to do right now based on what they need. And so because we are able to set those goals with them, we can do a truly customized intensive.
So, I love that. I think there's so many things out there that, man, you could just pin the tail on an intensive, and there's so many different things out there, but finding the right one for you is massively important. So let me ask you this, and this is a great question for the viewer and the listener to hear your answer to. When should a couple, and I'll add a little caveat, when should a couple or an individual consider an intensive?
So when things are not going well. So let's start with this. At discovery, everything is just such a chaotic mess, emotions, thoughts, what are facts, what aren't. So not long after discovery can be a great time to do it. Obviously, when you do it that early, we're talking about basics, right? We're talking about how does a partner find safety? So they would be really helped with that. Safety and stability are sort of your first phase of healing. A lot of people stop there. That's not life. Just being safe is not life, right? So we like to, of course, help people move beyond that. If though they're coming that early, then that is what we're going to aim for with a partner. With an unfaithful, we're going to aim for basic, what are you doing about these behaviors? Let's outline those 3 circles that we've talked about before, but where, okay, what can't I do? What's dangerous for me to do? And what's really healing to do? And in that, there's a relational piece as well. So that would be, those are going to happen. Sometimes we'll see couples early on together. We might do a split, like 3 days with one, then a couple of days together, then 3 days with another. It just depends on what they need. Another time when somebody might want to come as a couple or individually is when things have gotten stuck or they've plateaued, right? So why aren't we making any more progress? Maybe you're both still doing what you've been told to do, what the work is, and yet things don't seem to be improving. Very often we get referrals. A lot of what we do is from being referred from another therapist or coach. And it's when they've gotten to a place where they're stuck. They don't know what to do next. with that couple and how to help them. And we specialize in that because we're really good at rooting around and finding out where things are sticking, and so that we can help them loosen that up. And very often we find, oh, wow, it's just that one thing. And now if we shift that, now we can practice how to do this in this whole intensive as we go.
And I like to do this. There's times where I'll be working with a couple and it's just like, man, they're considering divorce. And so there comes a point where I'll say, look, I think y'all need to do an intensive. This is the last ditch effort. If you divorce, then when you divide up finances, you can split the cost. Or I'll tell the spouse that's pushing for the intensive, hey, put it in the divorce that you'll pay for it, but go spend 2 to 4 days and give it a best effort. Your family, your legacy, the 10, 20, 40 years that you've been together, call for one last ditch effort, because I think you would agree for some people, not everybody, but for some people, man, an hour a week, it doesn't cut it, right?
No, we didn't even do that ourselves. So we were, like I said, we were seeing at one point a couples therapist. I was seeing a CSAT and a regular therapist. Sharon was seeing 2 different therapists to get what she needed there. Plus, I had the 12-step work with my sponsor, who saw me every day.
Yeah.
We talked every day, and the man is brilliant. Without him, Sharon and I both agree, without Scott, we would have been dead in the water. Every time something came up, Scott would be like, so how would Sharon take that? Or when are we going to talk to Sharon about that? So he was always having Sharon in mind. So that taught me to always have her in mind. And that's part of what we do relationally with Unfaithfuls, is always, how do you always have your partner in mind whenever you're making decisions? We talked about at one point ages ago about, can your partner be standing next to you with pom-poms going, yes, I love that. I love that decision you're making. Yeah. That's really a great litmus test. You talked about divorce. Sometimes the couple, either one of partners or both together, can feel hopeless, like there's no way forward. And sometimes they decide on divorce, and sometimes they decide on just living together, but really apart, right? Going through whatever emotions there are, but that's not life. That's not a great coupleship. That's really the goal here, is how do you go get through the discovery, the early recovery, the middle recovery, and get into a place where it can be something completely different. And it's not like you're going to do that in one intensive, but wherever you are is where we meet you and help you with that.
Absolutely. Because I like, so many people say, well, I don't even know if I want to save the marriage. Well, right. Go do an intensive. Don't try and white knuckle it and then create so much more collateral damage by just kind of winging it. You cannot wing it. We've talked about that a million times in all of our podcasts in one way or another. But I do love this. And I would invite you that are watching and listening to really consider this. There are times when an individual, one of the best things that they could do would be to do a personal intensive. So when should someone consider a personal intensive, unfaithful or betrayed?
So sometimes, you're at a point where the coupleship needs some of that basic work, or to find out some of the things that are not grounded in order to move forward. And often that needs to be one of the individuals coming and doing an intensive so that they can find out what it is that's sticking them, that's holding them up. So for Unfaithfuls, for instance, that could be, what's driving my behaviors? Why do I keep doing this? Or why am I still in a place where I'm tempted, or I'm disconnected, or what is stopping me from connecting and healing with my partner? And so that can be one of the reasons you would come alone. Another one would be, I'm just not able to connect with my partner's feelings. I'm not empathetic enough. That would be another great reason, coming in for that in-depth empathy. I hate to call it training, really awakening. How's that? Because we
Absolutely.
all have that capacity in us, right? And we're
It's
not training people to just say things by rote.
no. No, it's an awakening. The new word that so many people are using is a realignment, which I love. I'm all for that. A
Yeah, I like
personal
that.
transformation, right? Maybe we talked about this. This is a fresh word, hot off the presses from a podcast we just did. Maybe it's time to graciously, compassionately go through a intensive of self-confrontation on why we do what we do, think what we think, and why we've made the choices that we've made, right?
Yeah, self-confrontation. That's a strong, hard word because most of us don't like confrontation. And we're
No.
like, no, we're not going to do that. But confronting yourself is more like, okay, where am I gaslighting myself? Where am I fooling myself? What am I not seeing that I need to see? Right? Where am I getting, where am I getting stopped up? Is it something in my past? Is it something that I could fix right now without doing that deeper work that many people are afraid of? Even Brene Brown, she says she was afraid of it, right? I'm
Right.
going to come see you, but I'm not going to do any of that family stuff. No. So,
Absolutely.
what about betrayed partners? Why would they need an individual? You would ask that, or why would they want one? Sometimes early on, it's just, how do I find safety? And you can't do that with your unfaithful present. Finding that ground again, because betrayeds lose so much. They lose their faith in themselves, even their faith in their spiritual higher power,
Yeah.
their God. They lose trust in not just the unfaithful, but in the world, in their friends, in so much. So to find that ground again where they can begin to trust themselves again is really more individual work. It can be done in a coupleship, and certainly it'll grow in the coupleship later on. And then getting to a place where, you feel some stability and can say, okay, here's this choice and this choice. I'm going to deliberately go here. Even though that's hard, I'm going to go this way. And that becomes more of, I'm going to feel more stable. I'm not going to be pushed by the wind this way or that. Or sometimes the partner just wants a more advanced look at becoming themselves again.
Yes. And I think for those who go through a divorce, there's wonderful therapists and coaches that do divorce work. I do a lot of it. There's a lot of people that can help. And there's divorce care groups at churches and synagogues and whatnot. I think I encourage so many people who end up having to go through a divorce. You know what? Give yourself a gift and go do an intensive so that you can transition out of your divorce into the next chapter of your life with healing, with understanding. There's a guy who has long passed away, but he was a wonderful man who I spent some time with. And he used to say this: how we leave one thing determines how we'll enter the next. And so leaving a relationship can be so painful, and divorce is so difficult. But going through a transitory time where you have safe people that love you, that are going to care for you and not shame you for getting divorced, and not say, well, what do you think led to the divorce? And let's see how we can blame you. No, let's go through some massive healing. Let's go and get some great tools that'll take you into the next relationship and into this season of healing that you're going to go through. So when you go through a specialized intensive, and so many people know I used to work for a Fair Recovery. Rick Reynolds is still a great friend of mine, and I spent 15 years getting people to EMS weekends and supporting them and all of that. And so what is the difference between a specialized, tailor-made intensive versus, therapy, coaching, or even kind of group work?
So, there are groups like that meet once a week. We run those as aftercare groups, right? So people can join those after they've been in an intensive. And that's really great because there is a benefit to group. You get other people with like issues, you get to help them, they get to help you. There's a lot that goes on that's really fantastic. And when we're talking about a group intensive, though, it doesn't diminish that, but what it does is it means that you're not getting a lot of one-on-one time.
Yeah.
And so with us, you've got 100% of our attention. me, Sharon, and our staff. So we've got 5 other coaches and therapists who work for us. And so as we don't use them all necessarily in one intensive, but one's a gaslighting expert, one's a neurological sort of paravagal system, so a calming neurological expert. So even though I'm very, very good with that, why not call Amy in and have her do it? Because that is her purview. That's exactly what she does. Or Sarah, who does our gaslighting work and values work. So when you have 100% of our attention, wow, it is all right there for you. The other part of that is you can't really escape. So I've been in groups where I'll just sit there and go quiet and not really share and not really do any work, right? Fortunately, I've had some really good therapists who go, hey, James.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Same. Same.
So the other beautiful thing about, doing this is one of the reasons it works so well is that you're putting in, 35 to 40 hours in that time. That's 10 months to a year's worth of therapy.
Yeah.
And, in a few days, in less than a week, right? 3 days. And the thing when you look at that is, you're paying for it up front, but it's 70% of the cost of all of that. And you've got me and Sharon all the time, right? Plus our staff. So that results in a much faster, especially when you do it early on, it's a faster liftoff or kickstart. And when you're doing it a bit later, it's really this beautiful thing of that is all about you in a good way.
And you say this to me a lot, that at some level, you're developing new neural pathways that get really built into the brain faster and stronger and under a supervised element that will last longer. That's a big deal. People don't understand how trauma affects the brain. So you guys really focus on that, right?
Yeah, everything is neurologically informed. So everything that we do, whatever the modality is, and modality means just how it's the approach, right? Yeah. So we do sand tray, for instance, which is a very experiential, non-thinking way to do it. So that's hitting your right brain. Right brain is the emotional regulation brain. So we're directly going into the emotional regulation part of your brain doing that kind of work. Whereas the other part, when we're doing a lot of educational work or breaking things down, that's left brain. And so we're hitting that understanding, which works because that helps you understand, that's why I need to do this right brain work. So it gives you sort of a solid foundation on which to go, okay, that's why I've got to do this breath work or whatever it is, the somatic work. We do a lot of somatic work because our bodies, the new research shows that our bodies actually send messages to our brains that control the brain. Everybody used to think, it's brain down. It's both. It's both ways. And that's what's being shown now in the newest neurology work. So
it's such a vital component. And that's why when we film together on Ask the Unfaithful, I love that you will always bring in the fact that this is specific trauma that you can't just 3 steps to a better relationship post-infidelity. God, I wish it was that easier. We all do, but we'd be out of a business, right? Because if ChatGPT could solve all of our neurological trauma, man, it would be over and done with. Because quite honestly, there's a lot of mistakes that get made when you're dealing with infidelity. They come through our door every single day. So what are some of the mistakes that you see where people are maybe going to intensives that are not infidelity or trauma informed or trauma specific?
So what you get is a compounded trauma then, because now you have a therapeutic trauma or an institutional trauma, they call it formally. But, you've got, oh wow, now somebody who doesn't really understand the all of the little bits and parts of this and the nuances causes more harm than good. You used to hear a lot about, oh, people would go to a certified sex therapist. And I'm not dissing them at all because they do beautiful work with couples who are having issues there, but they are not certified in betrayal itself. And so they would say, well, what's wrong with porn? Go ahead and watch porn with him.
Right.
And this is, I'm hoping they're more informed now. But a few years ago, that was very true. Another one is people who are highly specialized in dealing with trauma. So soldiers, first responders, people who have experienced a near death or an accident or something like that. Okay, that's PTSD. Absolutely. Is betrayal trauma also PTSD? It's actually something called CPTSD, complex.
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely. People know EMDR. They have all kinds of different ways to do it. And they don't know the betrayal piece, so they don't really know what to work on and how to work it and what's really coming up. I'm an EMDR therapist myself. I got it before all of this happened to me and Sharon, and so I was already doing that. Okay, it worked great. But there are specific applications to this. So it's kind of like, because betrayal trauma is such a specific type of trauma, and infidelity, the causing the trauma brings up so much of our own shame, which is a code word for trauma, that we need to be able to work those things in that context. So without the specialized training, it's like this. You may have a really good car mechanic, really top notch, right? Trained in so many different things, but you're not going to take a fighter jet to them.
Amen, brother. And I took a quote from one of your attendees, and I wanted to read it because I thought it was a beautiful picture of what work you and Sharon do. And this is from an actual client who attended one of your intensives. Being in a group intensive was like being in a cafeteria where you can choose to eat 6 puddings for dinner if you wanted and no one noticed. Whereas being with James and Sharon was like being invited to an intimate family dinner as honored guests. What a beautiful picture of breaking bread together, an intimate family dinner where you can talk about things that you can probably talk about with 1% of your friends or family or relationships. And I just love that picture. And one of your other specialties is key. Before we say goodbye, talk about that developmental trauma piece, because that's something that people out there in the Webernet love to just be like, is it all trauma? Do we always have to talk about our childhood? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But I'll let you explain that.
Well, as Freud said, if it's not funsick, it's your mother. So we do developmental trauma work. Yes, as part of the infidelity work, the betrayal work. Absolutely, it's in there. And we do, believe it or not, we do developmental trauma intensives for people who are not in betrayal recovery, for people who haven't gone through that. So we've been doing that for even longer. And it does, sorry to say, but nobody comes out of childhood in perfect condition.
Unscathed.
Right, unscathed. Thank you. Yeah. And, it is really, people go, but I don't have any traumas from childhood. Well, you may not have any specific ones, but you do have unmet needs.
Well, listen, if you're watching my podcast or if you're watching Ask the Unfaithful, there's a reason you're watching our podcast. It's pretty safe to say there's some trauma floating around. Now, the wonderful thing about what you and Sharon do, and I mean, I don't do this, but you do, is that you guys offer a free consultation. And so I think that's beautiful. And it just carries on the intimate family dinner. So if there's listeners and they're interested in having a free consultation, either for themselves or for their relationship or both, how do they find you? How do they set that up?
So they can find us by writing to info at Hope for Us. So that's Hope, FOR, us.com. They can go to the hopeforus.com website, which is Core Relationship Recovery. You can also get it at corerelationshiprecovery.com. And so that's the best way. Or our phone number is 561-345-3510. And you can get our wonderful office manager, Gail, at that number, and she can help you set something up to talk to us.
Wonderful. And if I can be of service, if I can point you to James or Sharon, you just reach out to me at samshealingpodcast@gmail.com. And at the end of the day, I can just tell you on behalf of James and Sharon and myself, we want you to get help somewhere. If you don't get help from them, if you don't get help from me, get help from someone who knows what they're doing, because you're worth the investment. And there is an investment that we all have to make in ourselves. So this is a part of the recovery process, which is investing in the relationship, investing in ourselves. And that takes time, and that takes attention, it takes sacrifice, it takes finances, it takes doing hard work. You're not going to find a safer place to have a good family dinner with people who are willing to care for you and support you than James and Sharon. So once again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.